You have been lied to about what a bank robbery looks like. Hollywood wants you to believe it requires genius. They show you lasers. They show you hackers typing code in a dark van. They show you blueprints, tunnels, and thermal drills. They want you to think that stealing $1 billion is a complex, impossible feat that only a mastermind can pull off. They are lying to you. I'm going to tell you about the biggest heist in the history of the human race. It didn't involve a single gun. It didn't involve a ski mask. It didn't involve a getaway driver speeding away from the cops. The biggest heist in history happened in broad daylight at 4 a.m. with 3 unarmored tractor trailers and a piece of handwritten notebook paper. The man who did it didn't have to break into the vault. He just asked for the manager. Welcome to the real world. In the real world, if you own the government, you don't rob the bank, you are the bank. Let me take you back to the scene of the crime. It is March 18th, 2003, Baghdad. The United States military is hours away from raining hellfire on the city. The shock and awe campaign is about to start. The regime of Saddam Hussein is crumbling. The world is watching on CNN, waiting for the end. Most people in this situation would be panic packing. They'd be shredding documents. They'd be looking for a hole to hide in. But Saddam Hussein wasn't a normal criminal. He was the CEO of Iraq Inc., and like any CEO about to be fired, he wanted his severance package in cash. He calls his son Qusay. He doesn't tell him to mobilize the troops. He doesn't tell him to defend the palace. He tells him to go to the Central Bank of Iraq. Now, you need to understand what a central bank is. It isn't the Wells Fargo down the street where you keep your checking account. The central bank is the Federal Reserve of the country. It is the heart of the monetary system. It's where the currency lives before it goes to the economy. It is the ultimate vault. Qusay walks in at 4 a.m. He asks to see the governor of the bank. Imagine the scene. The governor is terrified. He knows the Americans are coming. He knows the regime is over. He's probably thinking about his family. Qusay looks him in the eye and hands him a letter. It wasn't typed. It wasn't notarized by a lawyer. It was handwritten, and it said effectively, "Give my son the money. It is necessary for national security." Signed, Saddam. That's it. That was the hacking tool. That was the security bypass. A note from Dad. Now, this is where the reality of the syndicate hits you. You think $1 billion is a number on a screen. You think it's a wire transfer. You think of money as digital code. Wrong. When you are stealing $1 billion in cash, you don't have a financial problem. You have a logistics problem. Do you know what money weighs? $1 million in $100 bills weighs about 22 pounds. That's manageable. You can carry that in a backpack. But $1 billion? That weighs 22,000 pounds. It is 10 tons of paper. You can't put that in a duffel bag. You can't put that in the trunk of a getaway car. You need heavy industrial machinery. They brought 3 tractor trailers, not armored trucks, just transport trucks. For 5 hours, bank employees, the very people hired to protect the money, were forced to load it onto the trucks. They were loading the wealth of an entire nation like it was garbage. They loaded 900 million US dollars. They loaded another 100 million euros. It took so long that the sun came up. People were walking to work, watching the dictator's son loot the national treasury, and nobody did anything. Why? Because the system was still technically in charge. The illusion of authority hadn't broken yet. The trucks drove away into the dust, and just like that, $1 billion vanished. This is the part that should make you angry, not because they stole it, but because of what it proves about your life. We are taught that money is real, that it represents value, labor, time, effort. But watching 3 garbage trucks drive away with $1 billion proves that money is just paper that men with guns agreed to value. If Saddam had won the war, that theft wouldn't be in the history books. It would have just been called a reallocation of assets. It would have been legal. The only difference between a bank robbery and a bailout is who signs the paper. Think about it. When a guy in a mask takes money from a register, he goes to jail for 20 years. When the Federal Reserve prints $1 trillion and devalues your savings account by 10%, they call it quantitative easing, and they get re-elected. Saddam's heist was just the raw, honest version of what central banks do every day. They take the purchasing power from the people and move it to the palace. But the story doesn't end there, and this is where it gets stupid. Hours later, the bombs fell, the invasion began, the Hussein regime collapsed. For weeks, nobody knew where the money went. It was the ghost money. Intelligence agencies around the world were panicking. They thought Saddam was going to use it to fund an insurgency for 50 years. But then, U.S. Special Forces, Task Force 20, started finding odd things in the palaces. They broke down a false wall in one of the cottages near the Tigris River. They expected to find weapons, maybe chemical gas. Instead, they found metal boxes, hundreds of them. They cracked them open, and there it was. Not in a Swiss vault, not in a complex crypto wallet, just sitting there, rotting in the heat. They found $650 million hidden in the walls of the palace. It was so much cash, they didn't know how to transport it. They didn't have enough trucks. There are photos of this. You can look them up. American soldiers standing on top of piles of cash that are taller than they are. Imagine being a soldier in that room. You're making $30,000 a year. You're risking your life in a foreign country, and you're standing in a room with $600 million. The temptation, the absurdity. You are looking at generational wealth for 10,000 families just sitting in a humid room because one family wanted to keep score. And guess what? They didn't recover all of it. Most of the money was sent back to the U.S. or given to the new Iraqi government, but hundreds of millions are still missing. Maybe it's buried in the desert, eaten by termites. Maybe it's in a basement in Jordan. Maybe a few soldiers decided an early retirement package. We will never know. But the lesson of March 18, 2003 isn't about Iraq, it's about you. It proves that the money in your bank account is only yours as long as the syndicate allows you to have it. We build our lives chasing these numbers. We stress over them. We work jobs we hate for them. But in the end, it's just paper. If the system collapses, if the power goes out, if the king decides he needs a refund, those digital numbers in your banking app mean absolutely nothing. Real wealth isn't paper, and it certainly isn't digits on a screen controlled by the same people who wrote that note. Saddam Hussein knew the truth. He who holds the gold makes the rules. The rest of us, we're just holding the bag. So the next time you see a bank, don't look at the vault. Look at the people running it, because that is where the real robbery is happening every single day, and they don't even need a mask to do it.